Alright, hello everyone. I'm here with super famous Gerry Thompson with a cat walking by.
There'll be a few of those.
Oh, you have a lot of them?
I have 3 cats now, yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Just for a little bit of introduction. Oh, you just want to show the cats? Sure.
You can interview them.
How it's going, cats? I actually like cats more than dogs, to be frank.
Me too. You're not supposed to say that out loud though. People get mad at you.
Yeah, I actually kind of like it when people get mad at me though. I like to get into a conflict.
Are we going to be doing that today?
Well, it depends. It depends on how it's gonna go. Like maybe I haven't decided yet.
All right. Well, just let me know.
Either way, just for a little bit of introduction, Gerry used to be like a famous guy who just played a bunch of Star City games. He also top-8 10 GPs and he won 2 of them, and he has 3 Pro Tour top-8s with 1 win. And he also used to work at Wizards for like, I don't actually know for how long, maybe we will get to it during the interview. How's it going, man?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
I'm fine, I suppose. I mean, Corona, makes it that it can be like as awesome as it could be otherwise. But besides that, I'm doing pretty well, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's been 9 months. I've seen friends maybe 6 times. Mm-hmm. But mostly I've just been by myself. So yeah, this is not great, man.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks for everybody. It's not just that like it sucks for you. Like, I mean, I don't know. Anyone I talk to says the same thing. So.
Yeah. Obviously, it sucks for everyone. I'm not trying to be like, I have the worst situation, but it is bad, and I definitely get that. It sucks for everyone. Mm-hmm.
So with this interview, I'm not really sure where to start. As I said in the beginning, you're like kind of were known for being like an STG grinder or whatever, but maybe there is like a story even before that. If you can talk about it, that would be like great.
Yeah, I had been playing Pro Tour since like 2002, and basically I was able to qualify for whatever tournament I wanted to, with the exception of like 2, and that's throughout my entire career. So that always came pretty easy to me. And then once I would get to the Pro Tours, I would finish like dead last or pretty close to it. So there was a lot of stuff that I was doing wrong that I didn't figure out until much later. And I think one of the things that people thought that I was really good at was tuning decks for like a week-to-week metagame, like if there was a known metagame. And then when the Star City tournament started happening, that just kind of became the thing that I did, because those tournaments were like pretty easy to beat up, whereas the Pro Tours, being in a new format, it didn't really translate to my skill set. So I played a bunch of Pro Tours before the Star City stuff, but it is interesting to hear how people perceive me, because like I don't know what people say about me behind my back necessarily. So you're just like, yeah, you're like a Star City guy. It's like, dude, I was playing Pro Tours for like a decade before that.
No, I mean, I kind of assumed that you did, but like if you're just like a 15-year-old kid from Europe, as I was back in the day, you don't really know everything, right? But like when I turned on Star City, like you were usually there, and that's what where I got to see you for the first time or whatever. So that's where I got my perception from.
When I started playing Magic, I delved a lot into the history and like reading old tournament coverage and stuff like that, and that was kind of like how I got to know people. It wasn't even necessarily, because like in 2002 we didn't have live coverage, right? So that was the best I had.
You already said that your maybe the best skill or whatever is to like maybe tune the deck for the current metagame or whatever, and you're maybe not doing as well at the PTs because of that. Why do you think that is?
I mean, it's a lot of reasons. Like, for starters, I was definitely better at tuning for a week-to-week thing, where it's like, okay, this is the metagame, these are the 2, 3, 4 best decks, and figuring out what the best deck to play in that field was, or how I could adapt a deck by changing like 15 cards to really like shake up some bad matchups. Like that has always just came natural to me. And then for the Pro Tours being brand new formats, I didn't really know where to begin because I didn't know what other people were going to do. And things are a little bit different now. They're a lot different now with, Arena and Twitch, and there just being so much information out there. I think when, a lot of the time when the Pro Tours happen, even, like week 3 of a format before there have been any big tournaments, like people kind of know what the decks are going to be. But back in the day, I didn't. So trying to guess what other people were going to do and like me basically being on my own, trying to figure out what the best decks were just two things that I couldn't do very well.
Mm-hmm. Do you maybe think that like, your biggest strength comes from that, like, if the meta game is established, you kind of know how to beat on it, and just like maybe only by your deck choice you have like a huge edge. But when it comes to like the games, like the in-game skill itself, maybe you don't have it as much, and like because of that you were losing on the Pro Tour, or like is that accurate? Or
no, I think my like skill wise, I think I'm fine. Like I'm definitely above average at the Pro Tour, if not higher. But when you're joining these Pro Tours with a deck that is significantly worse than everyone else's.
Oh, I see. So you didn't even have like average decks, you just had bad decks.
Yeah. I think honestly, if I would have just taken like a deck from the internet, just card for card, I would have been better off than trying to build my own decks, because I would either just make gross assumptions that about like, what decks people were going to bring or what decks people thought were good. And it was never close. Basically never close. Like there were several tournaments where I was like, they used to post all the deck lists for some of their Pro Tours, and I was like, I literally had the third worst deck in the entire tournament. 450 people. Yeah,
I actually remember like 3 years ago or whatever, I like showed up to the Pro Tour and you were like sitting there, and I just like basically came to you and like I asked you, are you the good Gerry or the bad Gerry for this Pro Tour? Because like
I remember that.
Yeah, like for a lot of people, they like kind of go like 9-7 or 8-8 or whatever. But you're like one of the guys who just like goes like 5-1, like 1-5 drop, or then he just like wins the tournament. So it's just like very weird that you like, yeah, I don't know.
So I think that was more of what I was capable of in the last few years, where I had refined a process and made it a point to get better at the things that I sucked at. And that meant that more often than not, I was going to have a pretty reasonable deck, if not like, one of the top 25% of decks in the room or something. But I could still get it wrong. There's always a chance for you to assume that, like 2 of the big teams are going to show up with a certain deck or whatever. And that's probably like 20% of the metagame. And if you're wrong there and you base a lot of stuff on your deck selection on that, you're just kind of screwed. So I think there is still a lot of variance, and part of the problem with like me in particular is that there's probably always going to be variance, because I was never going to be like, I'm just going to play, stock mono red or whatever, even though I did that a few times, and go like 9-7, right? Because that doesn't get you anything.
So we already talked about the Star City a little bit. How did it like happen? Was it that just like you just like to play Magic, and you also knew that you're gonna do well because you just played into your cards and you like just did it? Or did you like had something into mind, like something that you wanted to accomplish, and that's why you did it? Like which one of those was it?
Well, I knew the tournaments were probably going to be pretty easy for me, because the top tier of players is better than like your average PTQ player. So in order to win the tournament, it's maybe harder than a PTQ, but I think like the average player in those tournaments was worse than a PTQ or like a GP day 2 or something. So it seemed like it was going to be pretty easy money, but I also didn't have a ton of money to travel at that point. So I basically just showed up to a couple tournaments, qualified for their first invitational, won their invitational, and then they had kind of like a pro players club, basically, that I got as a result of winning the invitational, where I was getting like some amount of money for showing up, which helped cover the flights and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, I could probably just do this like a couple times a month. And that's what I did. And, tried to make good decisions, but like couldn't do it all the time.
So I don't really know. I think it's like maybe 10 years back now. I don't really know for sure, but you went to work for Wizards for a little bit, but then kind of quickly you quit. I don't really know the reasons, but like it maybe was just that you like missed the playing or whatever. Can you just like maybe talk about it a little bit if you can?
Yeah, I went to work for them at the end of 2013, I believe. Mm-hmm. And the first set that I worked on was Cons of Tarkir. And I knew in a couple years, like leading up to that was something that I was interested in. So I started trying to, be more appreciative of the way that they looked at things. And
that's a very nice way to say it.
Well, no. It was basically just like I needed to study game design, right? Because it's like I'm a good Magic player. I'm a good deck builder, but I don't necessarily know the reasons for why they do a lot of the things that they do, right? And it was mostly just like, paying attention to actually like the words that they're saying and the reasons behind them, because they are smart people. And even if you don't necessarily agree with their decision, you can see how they got to that point through their logic, right? So like, read some Rosewater articles and follow their Twitters and stuff like that, and just start thinking about it more and more too. And normally I think, maybe you can relate to this too, is like we would go to these tournaments and we would be interacting with the people who were hyper competitive. And Magic is not all about that, right? It's like such a small sample of what Magic is about. And you just have to start thinking more about how other people in like the Grand Prix venue, for example, are interacting with Magic in the game and everything. And not just be like focusing on like, this is what the PTQ system should be because it benefits me the most or whatever, right? So it was a lot of like broadening my mindset in order to prepare myself for like trying to get that job at some point. And eventually got it, which was cool. And like, I wouldn't have this problem now, but when Magic was like all that I thought about, I would carry a notebook with me everywhere. I'd always be like building decks. All my friends played Magic. It was basically like the only thing that I wanted to think about. So then when you get this 9-to-5 job where you're supposed to not take work home with you, basically, is like they want you to work 40 hours a week, not burn out, which I think is good. And I would just get home and just sit there and like not know what to do with myself. Mm-hmm. And that was a big problem, because for the longest time, I always had this thing that I could fall back on, right? So, a couple years after that, I started like playing Hearthstone and Shadowverse and like all these other digital card games and stuff. So I don't know. At the time, I think I thought that there was like nothing better than Magic, but like there doesn't have to be, right? It's like these things are different. They take your attention for different reasons, and that's okay. So now I don't think I would have that problem, but back then I certainly did, and that was definitely a big reason why I left. But
what were you doing there, by the way? You were just like part of the play design team, or?
Yeah, they didn't have play design then, but it was effectively the same thing. Okay. It was like working on constructed Magic primarily, because I think that is like the skill set of mine that they wanted to utilize, but like also did a bunch of limited stuff. I was on some set design teams and things like that. Like I was on the team for Dragons of Tarkir, which I left before that finished. So like collecting company and stuff, you can't blame on me.
Okay, yeah. So you were basically just like missing the fact that you just came home after work. You didn't really have anything to do, and you were just like missing the fact that you cannot play tournaments and stuff, and that's why you decided to come back. Basically, is that?
Yeah, that was a big part of it. I mean, the other reason is that they wanted to move me more onto this other game that they were doing called Kaijudo, because I started spending some of my bandwidth working on that game because I liked the game, and they liked the work that I was doing there, so they wanted me more. And the folks at Wizards were like, yeah, we can, let them go to more of like a 50-50 thing. And it's like, well, I didn't like quit playing Magic to work half on Kaijudo and half on Magic, So it was like a big combination of things.
So one thing that I think is super interesting is that, you know, we already talked about it a little bit. You kind of had problems with like doing well at the PTs, but like I think that once you like came back from working at Wizards, you like started doing pretty well. You even like I think you top 8 the Pro Tour, and then you like even won it. Correct me if I'm wrong. I definitely know that you won it. I'm not sure if you like top 8 it in that era as well. Do you think that like anything changed? Maybe you were like more relaxed or whatever, or you just got lucky, or what happened there?
No, a lot changed. Like, so I kind of remember this where I sat down to talk to Eric Lauer, and he was like, yeah, we want to do this like 50-50 thing. And I told him that I would like go home and think about it. And I thought about like both that, but also, okay, if I leave Wizards, what am I going to do? You know, so it's like, all right, I have to call up Cedric and be like, hey, hypothetical, you know, in case I leave Wizards, could I have my job writing for Star City back? Things like that. And it's just like trying to set it up where I still have like a life to go back to after Wizards, right? So it's like, make sure I have my job back, figure out how I want to engage with Magic, like what I would be trying to do from there. And a lot of that spawned a bunch of thoughts about like how much I had made mistakes over the years and like whether or not those things were fixable. And, you know, like working for Wizards certainly helped in that degree too, because like they have their own systems for, you know, like figuring out limited formats, right? And things like that, where I was like, I'm pretty sure I can like take some of what I was doing, some of what they're doing. And I'm pretty sure that these are all the mistakes that I was making when I was playing on the Pro Tours. And I think I can fix a lot of that stuff. So like, do I want to give it another shot? And it was just like, okay, get all my ducks in a row and yeah, just try again, basically. And I had one invite because I lost an invite, I think, when I went to Wizards.
I see. Yeah.
Now they just give the play designers gold for a year, whatever the gold equivalent is. So I got kind of shafted there. But
is that a case for like all the play design like participants? Like if you just leave the team, you just get gold, or like did you have to be like a pro beforehand?
So people that I can think of, like Peter Ingram was not gold when he went in, I believe, and when he came out, he was gold. I think the same is true for Tom Ross. And then Kazu Negri just left, and he played in the first championship or whatever you want to call it. I don't know if he's, you know, qualified for 4 of them or 6 of them or whatever, but you don't have to have a pro standing necessarily now. But certainly when I was there, it was just like, well, you know, you sacrificed one, so we'll give you the one back.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
So my first Pro Tour back was Vancouver, one of the core sets, where I think Yol won.
Oh, is that the one with like Monorat and Scissors?
Yeah. So that was my first one back, and I top 25, which qualified me, and then I didn't miss a Pro Tour after that. So like I hit gold the next year, and then I think the year after that, I won the Zombies Pro Tour.
Did you like play a lot for that tournament? Like do you think that you played super well? Like was something different, or was it like just that good and you just run really well, or like, you know?
I was playing a lot of Magic for sure, and definitely, you know, thinking about Magic a lot. I remember some very, very specific things that I did wrong as far as, you know, like in-game playing. And in Limited, I remember specifically in my second draft, like being able to read the table really well and like make some fairly greedy picks that like ended up paying off. And it's like, you know, you could do the safe thing where basically like I was able to wheel a gold card because I knew no one else was in those colors, right? And it's like, it just means you get 2 first picks out of a pack versus just like being safe and taking the one card. And that's often the difference between having like a deck that's 2-1 versus a deck that's 3-0, right? So it was just being able to do stuff like that where it's like, I can just pass this pack is deep, no one can hate draft it because they have to take playables. And I think I was like pretty much on as far as things like that. And then like I didn't know what Dark Salvation did in the early rounds. Like I knew what it did, but I just, it's a thing where like if your opponent plays Crypt Breaker on turn 1 in the mirror, you can use Dark Salvation to kill the Crypt Breaker.
Yeah.
And which is just like not an intuitive thing. Like sometimes I'll get Tunnel Vision where it's like, oh, this is -X for like the amount of zombies I have, right?
Yeah.
And that was just like my card was in Japanese and I didn't read it, because I'm not as skilled as you. But
I'm not actually that good at reading, but
okay. Well, you'll get there.
Eventually, probably, yeah.
Yeah, so just stuff like that where it's like you can afford to make some like really dumb mistakes. I Grasp of Darkness to 4-5 in my top 4 match against Ken, and still won the tournament. But as long as you have like the overall like clear mindset picture going on, I think you're still fine as long as you're able to like recover from those mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
If you don't want to talk about it, it's fine, but I kind of heard as well that you sometimes have like this problem that like you're not maybe feeling that well and you kind of want to drop after round 1. Was maybe like part of your success the fact that you're like maybe able to overcome that?
No, I mean that's a thing that happened within like the last 10 years or so, where just depending on the tournament and the weekend and everything, it's just like I don't care if I'm like 5-1 or like 0-1. It's just like if I'm not feeling it or I want to go do something else, I think that's completely reasonable to do. And I think I don't know, there are just a lot of people out there who are like, well, I joined this tournament, so I'm obligated to finish it despite how miserable it's going to make me. And it's like, nah, dude, like you're free to do whatever you want.
I see.
But when I started playing Magic, I wanted to finish every tournament. Like that was the thing that I wanted to do. And then, later on in life, it's like, well, like my friends are dead. There's like 3 rounds left. I'd rather just go grab dinner with them. Like, who cares?
Yeah, that's very interesting. That's not that common to hear, but I'm not judging or anything. Just like thought it was interesting, so I wanted to ask about that. Another thing that I would like to ask about, also if you don't want to talk about it, it's fine, but you actually resigned from one of the World Championships. I think you maybe even resigned from MPL, I'm not sure. Can you like maybe talk about it a little bit? Because that was like a huge step. It got like a lot of likes, a lot of people probably want to hear about it. If you don't want to talk about it, it's fine, but I think I kind of have to ask about it, so I am.
There's basically nothing that I won't talk about. So, it's kind of funny where it's like, like I decide to come back on the Pro Tour, play all these Pro Tours, and like kind of dedicate a big chunk of my life to that again. And then that's around the time when, in my opinion and a few other people's opinions, is when they, started messing up organized play and stuff like that. So it was like, okay, this sucks, right? And we had these meetings at every Pro Tour. Like they eventually formed this committee that was like Willie Adel, QE, and someone else. I forget the third person. Do you remember?
No.
Okay. So it was like these 3 people where they're like supposed to be the advocates for the pro player community. But before that, we had like...
Did that actually happen? Sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt. Did that actually happen? Like I know about those 3 people like getting inducted or whatever, but I'm not sure if it actually happened or not.
Like, I mean, they were hired as like liaisons between the pro community to Wizards, and that was the case for a year, maybe a year and a half, something like that. It was very short-lived. But before that, we would have meetings at like every Pro Tour, every other Pro Tour, where it's like these, platinum pros or Hall of Famers who were like big-time community members, where they would meet with Wizards officials and talk about like organized play and stuff like that. Because Magic was growing a lot, right? So it was very clear that the old system was not going to sustain the growth. And there were a lot of problems that happened from like growth happening and them not responding to it quickly enough. And then they would make changes, and then, they would, fail to, pay attention to certain things or whatever. So they'd be like, okay, well, this clearly has a problem. And they were supposed to be like talking to us and getting advice because, we're the players. We are the people who are going to these tournaments, interacting with the community, hearing what the community has to say, and Wizards is sheltered from a lot of that, even if they actively try and pay attention, So I think it was a good idea for them to set up the meetings, but the meetings were also just really frustrating, where we would like go in, offer feedback, offer advice, and this isn't like a personal thing, like, oh, they didn't listen to my ideas, but it's like, you have people like PV and Finkel and all these like really smart people giving you a bunch of really good advice for free. And then the next meeting would be like, well, we didn't listen to your advice and this is how it screwed us. And it's like, yes, you should have listened to the advice, right? Because the people on our side, like we actually knew what we were talking about. So that was just getting frustrating, where they were like, yeah, we hear you. And then we're not doing anything. And it got to a point where I was just like, I don't remember what the last straw was, but there was something. It was like PT25A, like after that meeting, I'm just like, this sucks. Mm-hmm. And it was basically that weekend when I decided that I was going to sit out of Worlds, and Worlds was like 2 months away. So then it was a matter of like figuring out the best way to do it, the best way to make it so that people sat up and took notice, but not disrupt the tournament to the point where, it just screws over like all the players, all the judges, all the organizers, etc. So yeah, for example, one of the hypotheticals was like, I definitely have to play in the tournament, right? Or I have to like go to Vegas that weekend and show up, because if I sit out like the Wednesday before, they replace me with someone else and just like, shovel it under the rug or whatever, right? And like no one takes notice. So I have to go and have it be like I'm playing in the tournament. So I was like, what if, I sat down to do the first draft. There's 24 players. There's 3 pods of 8. I'm 1 in 3 that my pod will get covered, right? And what if they start coverage and they're like, all right, draft, and I just get up and walk out? Like, that screws them over so bad, and like that was over the line. That was where I was like, okay, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Because I think that's getting like a little too personal with a lot of people. So what I ended up doing was the morning of, about like 30 minutes before the tournament, maybe a little bit less than that, I messaged Scott Larrabee and was like, hey, I'm sitting out of the tournaments. You can figure out why on Reddit. I'm going to make a post, whatever. So then they had to scramble, figure out what to do, like remove me from all the slides, not mention my name, whatever. And I actually was going to be in the featured draft pod too. Could have been funny. But there's just like a lot of problems. There's so much has happened since then. I could like try and pull up my Reddit post or whatever. But like, one of the things that I definitely remember was the fact that folks from Latin America and the APAC region kept kind of getting like screwed over, where I think, like, for example, like Paulo's like the exception to the rule, right? Like he made it despite all the obstacles that he had to overcome, where there's just not a lot of opportunity to qualify. Flights are really expensive, and Wizards had at one point paid for flights, but then they had just taken them back. And Paulo was like the one person kind of from South America who had really made it big despite all of those issues. And basically like a lot of those people just weren't even given a chance. So they have like a good player base, and they spend a decent amount of money, and Wizards is just like, yeah, we really don't want to mess with it. It's like, it's too much work to figure out how to like get y'all involved in the organized play and like the Pro Tours and stuff like that. And APOC definitely had a lot of those same problems, but like maybe to a smaller degree. So it was just things like that, where it's like the players have the same complaints over and over and over again, right? And the folks at Wizards are just like, yeah, we hear you, and then just do nothing, or like do the exact opposite. And I was just sick of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember seeing that. Yeah. I just couldn't believe that you did it, but at the same time, I thought it was awesome. So I don't know.
Right. So that's the thing, right? It's like everyone, like I had four or 5 points on my thing, right? And I think no matter who you were in the pro community, you could look at one of those points and be like, that's basically talking about me, right? And that's why I did it, is because all of these different sections of people were kind of getting screwed over when they didn't have to be, and everyone was complaining about it and no one was doing anything about it. And I don't know if anyone would have done anything about it as far as like on the player side of things. Like there were some people after the fact who were like, "Oh, you should have told us," and like, you know, we would have sat out with you, right? But it's like I also can't do that because then they just like go tell Scott or whatever, and I'm screwed. So I don't think anyone else was going to do it, which basically means that I have to do it or no one does it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I would ever do it myself, but I definitely appreciate the fact that you did. So thank you.
Why would you not do it?
Yeah, I just wouldn't want to.
Alternative question. Do you think I should have done it?
Well, should is like no. Well, I wouldn't do it because I wouldn't want to lose the money, right? But if that's not something that you care about, then yeah, it's reasonable, I guess. I guess I'm too selfish. I guess I'm too selfish.
It, but
I guess I'm too selfish. That's why I wouldn't do it. But I definitely, you know, appreciate the fact that you did.
Yeah, see, like I think if I were, you know, 20, 25, maybe even 30, and I wasn't, you know, like as well situated.
How old are you, by the way?
Why do you ask me that?
Because 36. You said that even 30, so like I thought you were like 42, so like I just got surprised.
No, I'm 36. I had to do some quick maths. Yeah, like if I was younger and the money meant a ton to me, then maybe it would be different. Maybe it's like I'm in the group of people who literally can't, right? Like if I needed that money to pay rent or whatever, obviously I'm not doing it. I can't afford to. But like the money is good. It was, you know, $5,000-$6,000 in equity or whatever, but it's not life-changing money. And I was at a point in my life where I could make that decision, like not have it cost me too much. It's like, could I have won the tournament? You know, does that change things for me? Sure. But like at the end of the day, like I'm still going to be really unhappy about the state of things. So.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense. How about Magic and now? Like, are you still like actively playing Magic? Like, I know you have like a huge following on like Twitter and stuff like that. You know, what's your relationship with Magic right now?
It's my job, so I'm still paying a lot of attention to it. I have, you know, weekly article series, weekly podcast. I'm not playing a ton. Basically, whenever a set comes out on Arena, I'll play for like a month straight because it's interesting to me. And then during the week, if something pops up where it's like, oh, I need to learn this matchup, or I'm curious about this matchup, or I see like a sweet modern deck or legacy deck or something, then I'll play for a little bit. But like, I'm not jamming games every week or every day, you know, like I was preparing for like a tournament that weekend or a pro tour or something. So I'm playing a little bit less, but I'm definitely still like very tuned in as to what's going on.
Okay. I think we've talked about most things that I wanted to ask about. If there is still something that you want to say, I obviously don't want to cut the video before that, but are you fine? Like,
yeah, man, I'm good. I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about the difference between like the world stuff and the MPL stuff, because like that was a little bit later too.
Oh, sure, we can talk about it if you can, yeah.
It was like
I actually didn't realize that. Yeah, like I said it when I asked the question, but then I like forgot that you didn't answer that specifically.
Yeah. So, yeah. So the MPL stuff happened like a year or two later, and that was. Can I curse on this video? Is that allowed?
I'm from Czech Republic, so you know.
Okay. Dude, it was a shit show. It was bad. Like getting like the offer letter from one of the folks at Wizards, and me just being like, okay, this sounds kind of cool, but like I have a lot of questions, and they're like, yeah, you know, hit us up. So I was like, all right, boom, here's like 10 or 15 questions. And it's like, you want me to sign this year-long contract, and a lot of these things are just very obscure. So it's like they're reasonable questions, right? And they're questions that a lot of people had, but a lot of people were like, I don't care what the answer is, I'm just going to sign it anyway. I'm not one of those people. So I was like, yeah, I want to know this stuff, right? And then like 4 days goes by, and I'm just like, why haven't they answered my questions? You know? So I like send them another email, and the response I get like midnight that night is sign the contract by noon tomorrow or you're out.
That's rough.
So I basically tilt off the face of the earth. And I'm so frustrated by, the stuff that happened years prior, how they're handling this stuff now. And I'm seeing a lot of problems with it where, one of the questions is like, what happens to gold? Right? Like, okay, so you're giving all this money to platinum people. What happens to like the middle, like the aspiring grinders who make up like a lot of the competitive aspect of things, That question was never answered. And we found out the answer is just they were killing gold and didn't think about what it would do to things. But I talked to two people at that point, and they helped me come to a conclusion that it was like I could just very easily decline because it was going to be bad. I knew it was going to end poorly. But if what I really wanted to do was help, change things and get back on track, like what I try to do at Worlds, then probably the best way for me to do that would be to try and join. So I did that and, tried to like mend fences a little bit and tried to give my feedback. And again, it was the same type of stuff where it's like, yeah, your feedback's appreciated. We're not going to do anything with it. And again, there was like something happened that a few months later where I was just like, all right, this is clearly, not working, not happening. So I think I was in the MPL for like 6 months or whatever. And then I was just like, I tried to change it. Nothing happened. And it's clear that nothing is going to happen. So I just left that too.
Yeah. Do you think that the system just like failed and it's going to go away, or?
I mean, it continues to fail, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you feel about things. Maybe that's.
Yeah, of course I do. But.
Okay. Yes. Dude, it's also funny where, this was 2018, 2019 or something. I feel like if I had not dropped out, I'd still be in the MPL. Yeah. Like, that's a pretty big failing, right? It's just like these people are just grandfathered in, like TRGR, and obviously they're like trying to change things up now, but it's just ridiculous. And there's very little drive for aspiring competitive Magic players, people who are like, before it was like, oh, I win a PTQ, I play on the Pro Tour, maybe I win the Pro Tour and, get on the internet or get into Worlds or whatever they're trying to do. Right now, the system is so convoluted. And if you are an aspiring player, you can't like spike a PT top 8 and hit gold anymore. You have to dedicate like 2 years of your life to get into Rivals or something. It's ridiculous. So I think Magic is too big to fail, but I think that the way things are set up is definitely going to get worse before it gets better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not really sure what they're going to do about it. Like, I don't know. It just seems that they're like pouring money into this MPL that doesn't really accomplish anything. No one is really watching the tournaments anyway and stuff. But if they close it too soon, they kind of like say that they like messed up. Maybe they don't want to do that. Like I really don't know what's gonna happen.
I doubt we will ever hear those words from those folks. But I don't know. Anything could happen. Like if suddenly they decide to just tear it all down and try and build something new, I'd be happy with that. I don't care what the excuse would be. I would just hope that they would actually listen to community members and like do their research and stuff like that and try and figure out a system that actually works for people.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thanks, Gerry, for your time today. It was fun. If you guys like the video, please click on the like and subscribe button. And I hope everything goes well. Bye-bye.